Well, hello there, how is everyone? I hope you're all well on this fabulous Friday. That's it, baby, it's Friday, and do you know what else is fabulous today? You, that's right, you're looking fabulous. And we are getting straight into the meat and potatoes today. For two reasons. It's Friday, and I want to crack on and get you guys off so you can go and do something more interesting. And B, because I have a feeling that dog is not going to give me much time before it starts kicking off. She's quite the little bugger. Anyway, so what we're talking about? We're talking about, briefly, to wrap this week up, because there's been a few things happening. We are still waiting for the outcome of the court hearing to do with the cameras, to find out what the conclusion of all that was. At the time of recording this video, there has been nothing concluded, nothing said. We still don't really know what's going to happen with that. I kind of expect there not to be cameras in there. I genuinely do, but we shall wait and see. But this is about you. That's it, you. And what I'm talking to and who I'm addressing, or what I'm talking about and who I'm addressing mostly, is the people who are firmly in the Bryan Kohberger did this crime, and the rest is history. And I did a video very similar the other day that just tackled, you know, the fact that we have people who are just unwilling to accept that there is an alternative. But look, with the recent statements made by Steve Gonsalves, and for those of you who have seen that, and if you didn't, go watch my video yesterday, it talks about it a bit more in depth. But it does raise some huge questions. It raises some questions about how someone so close to this, as close as you can get, literally a parent of one of the victims, talking about this crime and talking about the way in which it's being handled. And it's now, I think, we come to a point where there's content creators who will not seem to accept or even want to go anywhere near the fact that Bryan Kohberger could indeed be innocent in all this. Or there just could be a bigger picture, and perhaps Bryan Kohberger is just part of a problem, part of a bigger situation that happened at 1122 King Road. Or indeed, just the investigation itself has been tainted by the fact that there are other things going on in the background that have took priority and made it be investigated and handled in a manner with which it wouldn't have been had the circumstances been different. And what do I mean by that? There is a lot of things going around Moscow, Idaho, and one of the biggest things that I know other people have touched on, we haven't spoken about it before because I just want to look into the background of it and see where this was going to go, looking at the financials of it. And this is to do with the acquisition of Phoenix University. And this is the University of Idaho, looking to acquire this university that has quite the checkered past. And you know, they basically want to turn this university into basically a money generator for Moscow, Idaho. That's the whole point of it, or, you know, Idaho. You know, and they're looking between now and 2030 to, they believe that this deal could generate another 150 to 180 million pound or $1 million, a year in revenue. And that's a lot of money. And you have to kind of consider what a business such as the University of Moscow, what they would be willing to do or overlook or have their hand in to make sure this went forward. And the thing is with this, it's all about timing, because this has literally just been given the green light. If I go onto here, let's just pull this over. So this is literally the University of Idaho's acquisition of University of Phoenix, a good idea. And it says the University of Idaho got the green light from the State's Board of Education Thursday to pursue a $550 million, that's $500 million, for the University of Phoenix, for a non-profit whose enrollment has been plunged amid chronic allegations of illegal recruitment and marketing practices. This university has got problems of its own. And ultimately, there's a lot of people who do not believe that this is ever going to work, because it is what it is. And even though this deal might make people forget about the issues at Phoenix, ultimately Phoenix University is Phoenix University, and it will eat itself once again. But where is it? If we scan through here, it talks about here, Idaho's Board of Education approved the University of Idaho's plans to create a non-profit corporation called New U to acquire the University of Phoenix. The University of Idaho, which enrolled around 11,000 students in fall 2021, plans to finance the deal by selling $685 million worth of bonds, meaning funding won't come from the institution's budget. If we scan through here a little bit more, so yeah, look, is it a guaranteed moneymaker? Between now and fiscal 2030, University of Idaho expects to receive between $150 million and $170 million through the deal. It's a lot of money. That is a hell of a lot of money. And what I guess I'm saying is, if you are firmly in the camp of Bryan Kohberger did it, and you're unwilling to accept that there could be an alternative, then I think you're turning your back and ignoring many, many things about this case that perhaps I wonder whether you would had it have been your own family. Steve Gonsalves himself talks about business. He talks about the fact he won't let, and I'm paraphrasing, he won't let the money situation and the business deals affect the ability for his daughter and the other victims to obtain the justice with which they are due. And what you have to appreciate, and I think here, is Bryan Kohberger is currently in incarceration. He's been held pending trial. Now, if this is just a done deal, then should people like Steve Gonsalves still be concerned? Steve Gonsalves cannot seem to give a straight answer as to whether he feels that Bryan Kohberger is the person who did it or not. Maybe he thinks that there's a potential that he could do it. Perhaps he feels there's a potential he didn't. Perhaps he feels there's a potential there's more to it. There's more to the story. But for those victims to obtain true justice, everybody involved in this situation needs to be brought to justice. Not just one element of it, one part of it. Or indeed, Bryan Kohberger, the patsy, just taking the rap just to satisfy everyone's needs for somebody to pay the price, but not necessarily the person who needs to pay the price. And I don't know whether this is what happens. People get on so much of a witch hunt, they don't really care about who gets sold down the river for it, as long as people see someone get sold down the river for it. But you are ignoring many, many things. You're ignoring the fact that right up until Bryan Kohberger's arrest, like literally right up until Bryan Kohberger's arrest, the Moscow PD claimed that they didn't have a suspect. They were looking for a car that didn't match that of what turned out to be their primary suspect, and that was changed. James Fry had, through his public appearances, had said that the surviving roommates were not witnesses. And then, lo and behold, one of them then turns into a star witness. Basically, the only person who can formulate a scenario that would give us a time frame for the crime, which just then so happens to tie in, we're led to believe, with Bryan Kohberger's car. But that's the only link to it. That's the only thing that gives you that time frame. That timestamp is the eyewitness that seemingly didn't exist earlier on. So what is it? And that time doesn't even match what the coroner released, Kathy Mabbutt, because she gave a time that was at least an hour earlier, albeit it was an approximation. But the approximation, if we want to go down the route of that, it actually started at, between 2 and 3. Then it's slowly gone forward and forward and forward until gone 4 o'clock. Point being, even though these can be explained, they haven't been explained. When you put them all together, they don't make sense. They don't make sense. We don't know if that's Bryan Kohberger's car. We've been told it is, and we've seen images ourselves that may or may not be the ones that they have in court. We've heard about phone pings, but we've also heard via the court documentation that the finality of those phone records has not come through. They've not been received by the FBI. We've got an issue with the DNA, where we're told that DNA was on a knife sheath that was found at the scene of the crime. But we've also heard in the background that there was 3 unidentified male samples as well. And we know that touch DNA or trace DNA, transfer DNA, the type of DNA that was on this sheath, it would have had to have been on that sheath before it entered into that property. It was transferred to it. It doesn't place Bryan Kohberger at 1122 King Road on this night. It just answers a question that could he potentially have touched this knife sheath at some time, or could his DNA have been transferred to this knife at some time? And the answer to that is yeah, it could have been, but it could have been done in a nefarious manner. And it does happen. And why does it happen? Well, when you see things like this happen, when people lose their life, or when people are framed, if you like, for want of a better word, it's done most likely for money, power, gain. And what do we have around this entire crime? We have people who are seemingly walking free, and then we're having big drug busts happening. We also have a crime where seemingly in 1 minute we've got nothing and no one and no witnesses, no nothing, and they're looking for cars that don't match and all this, that and the other, and then all of a sudden we're banged and it's all done, sailed down a river. We then hear about exculpatory evidence, but we can't get to hear the exculpatory evidence because the preliminary hearing is sideswiped off the table and turned into a grand jury to rush it all along. From then on, it's all about gag orders to hide everything. And all while there's a $500 million deal in the background. Now, I set a poll yesterday with respect of the University of Idaho and whether you felt the University of Idaho were getting too involved in something that could potentially impact the acquisition of justice in the Idaho 4 case. The University of Idaho has no place in this. They are an educational facility. That's all they are. They are not a law facility. They're not someone who should be involved in this. There's nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them whatsoever. The acquisition of justice in this Idaho 4 case is nothing to do with this entity. And the vast majority of you did feel that the University of Idaho were getting too involved. And they're getting too involved because there's money. And I feel, the more I look into this and the more I hear and the more that people like Steve himself comes forward and says what he said, I just wonder what this place were willing to do for the acquisition of money. Let me know down below. How do you feel? And what are you truly willing to ignore? It's not about 8-hour time delays, even though we can pick through them and we can pick it apart. This is all about a story that all of a sudden came closing down on someone. And when you look at how that happened, there is still a big question mark. We don't know. We don't know when they first found him. We don't know anything. All we know is 1 minute they didn't have someone and the next minute they've got the guy. And not only that, but on a silver platter, they've got his DNA at the scene. But they're unwilling to show the workings of that. Let me know down below. Have a fantastic, fantastic weekend. I may see you, I may not, but I do hope you have an amazing weekend. Thank you for sticking around this week, and I shall catch you all in the next one.